Hi, and this is a Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta from Dragon Ball GT. And while Goku got a refreshed version of the form in Dragon Ball DAIMA, Vegeta didn't. People have come up with concepts for DAIMA Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, and while I think they're awesome, I don't think he would throw off his armor the way Goku threw off his shirt. So I want to incorporate it into the design. So I'm bringing in this figure to kit bash and use his body to make my vision come alive. Let's see how it goes. So make sure you do all the things, stay tuned to learn how you can save 10% on gallery airbrushes, and let's get started. First I have to take them apart. Once I separated all the pieces, I did an initial fitting to see how everything would work together. After putting on the head, the body did look a little small, but I thought it might work since I'm changing out the arms and it'll give me those extra long monkey arms that I need. So I cut the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta arms off and did another test. It still looked disproportionate, but at certain angles, I thought it looked pretty good. I thought maybe the problem was the biceps being a bit too long, so as a last ditch effort, I cut the biceps off, drilled some holes, cut some armature wire for pegs, put the arms together, and did one final test to see if it works. Maybe? Oh, forget this. I'm gonna do what I should have done from the start. I started off by cutting off all the bells and whistles off of Vegeta's pants and boots to make him look more like his jumpsuit. Then I did a ton of sanding to make sure that everything was nice and smooth. I kept a lot of the wrinkle details on the pants because I thought it would add a lot more texture to the final product. Then I filled in some of the smaller gaps in the pants with some plastic filler. Then I used some putty to build up the boots to make them look more like his regular Saiyan armor boots. Moving up to his arms, I tried my best to put the original arms back together without any seams, and then built up the forearms using some putty, using his original musculature as a guide, and then punched a bunch of holes in it to make it look like fur. I pulled these gloves from something that may look familiar if you go back to the beginning of the channel. This one had some bad mold lines in there, so I shaved them down, and I thought this pair of gloves had a few too many wrinkles, so I filled them in to help them match better with the boots. Moving up to the torso, I had a thought to abandon making the armor at first, but after asking my members what I should do, I decided to carry forward. I used air dry Sculpey clay this time since I thought it might be easier to roll into thin sheets to cover up the original fur sculpt while adding as little bulk as possible. I added in some thin sheets of clay up by his shoulders to act as the ripped fabric that exposes his big old monkey arms. Then I started building up the armor panel by panel, starting with the shoulders, chest, and abdomen, and then added in some finer details. After some aggressive off-screen sanding, I added in the borders along his armor. I saved the borders until after sanding so that all the inner surfaces were even. I made sure all the borders were relatively the same width by trimming them down and then blending them together using a brush and some rubbing alcohol. I also added some imperfections in the armor using a sculpting tool to service some wear and tear on the armor, and then blended in the waist area using some epoxy putty. Last thing to do on the armor was to add the bottom, blending it, and adding in some wear. Finally, it was time to start painting. After starting my airbrushing journey with Purunga last video, Gallery reached out to me with an awesome opportunity to try out their GTS-06 airbrush kit. I'll be using it on Vegeta today, and if you like what you see, you can save 10% on your order by using my codes here, with the links in the description below. After priming the entire figure in white, I did an additional white base coat since I wanted to try a different shading method. Applied a thin layer of blue only inside the deepest muscle lines and cloth wrinkles on very low pressure to get some fine lines. Then I increased the pressure so I can do a light spray coat on the rest of the legs as a whole and let the white and blue naturally blend in with each other. I also did a first pass on his hair after priming it in Dragon Red. For the first time using this airbrush, I think these looked pretty okay, but I'll definitely come back to it later. I moved to painting the tan armor pieces by hand since it was easier than masking the areas off. Then I painted in his fur, starting with the parts attached to the torso. I think if I didn't have those ripped areas near his shoulders, I would have tried to airbrush the fur instead, but thought it might be too complicated to mask it. Speaking of that, I painted in the ripped shirt area using the same airbrush paint since I thought they were the same color, but it ended up being a little dark. I'll fix it later on. Then I reattached the bicep to the shoulders and sculpted over the cut line with some epoxy sculpt. While that cured, I started on his face. I started by painting in the outline of his pupils with some black red. Then did the outline of his eyes in black. Then I repainted the inside of his mouth with a series of pinks. I painted in his skin to get rid of this ghostly look, and while I was at it, I painted in the exposed forearms of the DAIMA Super Saiyan 4. After painting in some of the finer detail, I added some brown panel liner around his eyes and some pink brown panel liner in his ears and mouth just to give them some extra definition. And I cleaned up all my lines off screen. I wanted to take another stab at airbrushing now that I had an idea of what to do, so this time I repainted the shaded areas of the jumpsuit with an actual darker blue instead of a more concentrated blue, and then did a layer of regular blue to blend it all together. Then I painted in some light gray for shading in his armor, something I wanted to try instead of adding panel liners. I also did the same for his gloves and his boots. Then I went over the gray with some white to blend it all together. I did one more pass at the hair because I wanted to make it a little bit brighter, and it's a shame because the hair on here would be different and improved from the Super Saiyan 4 Goku that I did. Well, actually, I changed up his hair too. And also did a whole bunch of other improvements to clean him up since I had a little bit more time and wanted him to match Vegeta in the end. Afterwards, I did some light dry brushing on the hair and the fur, and painted in some of the finer details on the boots. Lastly, I gave it all a matte clear coat to protect all the paint. And all that was left to do was to put them back together. Here's the final result. Once again, airbrushing is opening up brand new opportunities, especially in the shading department. The jumpsuit shading came out really well, and I never would have been able to do the shading on the white areas by hand. And it was fun to go back to doing Goku and trying to make improvements on it. Let me know what you think in the comments. Speaking of Goku, let's pose him together.
We Saiyans have no limits. Let's charge again. Full power!
Thanks to Gallery for partnering with me on today's video. If you like my work and want to save 10% on your order, make sure you check the links in the description. And of course, thanks to all my members. Membership to the channel is only $2 a month, where you can catch sneak peeks of my project before they release, and some member-only polls that can help influence the final look of a figure. But most importantly, you'd be supporting me directly. Everything I use in the video is in the description, and while you're here, check out my other videos. Leave a like and a comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you know when my next video is going to drop. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
俺は悟空でもベジータでもない。俺は貴様を倒すものだ。